We often think of the crucifixion as the story of a helpless victim. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the real power wasn't in what happened to Jesus, but in what he refused to do for himself? That's the story we're diving into today.
And that's the big question, isn't it? With literally the power of the entire universe at his fingertips, why did he let it happen? The answer, I promise you, will completely change how you see the cross, and maybe even what it really means to love someone.
Okay, so before we can really understand why he refused, we first have to get our heads around the sheer mind-blowing scale of the power he was choosing not to use. This wasn't some passive surrender. This was an active, moment-by-moment choice to restrain unimaginable force.
And look, these aren't just my words. In the very moment they're coming to arrest him, Jesus himself makes it totally clear. He basically tells his friends, hey, this is all happening because I am allowing it to happen. He had a celestial army just waiting for the word.
So what are we talking about here? 12 legions of angels. That's a staggering number, 72,000 of them. Now, to put that into perspective, the Bible tells us that just one angel once took out an army of 185,000 soldiers in a single night. The force Jesus had on call could have just erased the entire Roman Empire from existence in a matter of seconds.
And that heavenly army? That was just his backup plan. I mean, think about the power he'd already shown all by himself. This is the same man who walked on water, who told a hurricane to be quiet, and it listened. The same man who brought people back from the dead. So let's be absolutely clear. This was not a helpless victim.
And this right here is the key to the whole thing. Every single insult, every lash from the whip, every nail was a deliberate choice. He felt every moment of that agony, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And that one simple idea, that it was all a choice, unlocks everything else.
So how did this choice actually play out? Well, we can zoom in on 3 very specific moments. 3 moments where he had a clear exit ramp, a chance to stop it all. And looking at these moments is how we're going to get to the why behind his incredible refusal.
All right, our first moment, it's the night before the crucifixion. We're in the quiet darkness of a garden. And this was his first and maybe his most personal chance to just turn back. He prays this intense, agonizing prayer. When he talks about this cup, it's easy to think he's just talking about the physical pain of the cross. And yeah, he knew that was coming. But what terrified him, what made him sweat blood, was something so much worse. Here's what was really in that cup: the spiritual weight of every single one of us. The Bible says that Jesus, who had never known sin, was about to become sin. Can you even imagine that? Absorbing every evil act, every lie, every betrayal in human history, all at once. And on top of that, being separated from God for the first time in all of eternity. That was the cup. And still, he said, "Your will be done." He chose to drink it.
Now let's fast forward. He's on the cross. The pain is just unimaginable. And this is when the temptation to use his power becomes public, loud, and absolutely relentless. This was the ultimate test of his resolve.
The crowd, the soldiers, the religious leaders, they're all screaming the same basic thing. They're taunting him. If you're really so powerful, prove it. Save yourself. In their eyes, his refusal to act was just proof that he was a fraud.
And this is where the story gets so fascinating. Because the people mocking him, in their total ignorance, actually stumbled on the absolute truth of what was happening. They were right. He saved others so he can't save himself, but not for the reason they thought. He was facing an impossible choice. The 2 options, saving himself and saving us, were mutually exclusive. He literally could not do both. So every single taunt from that crowd was an invitation to pick column A, come down, prove his power, save himself. But he had to choose. And in that moment, he chose us. He chose column B. You'd think that would be it. But even in his final moments, with death closing in, the temptation didn't stop. And this last one, it came from the most unexpected place. Not from a powerful religious leader, but from a common criminal hanging right there next to him.
I mean, think about that for a second. Even now, with just minutes of life left, he's being offered another out. Just perform one miracle, end this whole thing. It's the same temptation all over again, just in a different package. Use your power for yourself.
But instead of taking the bait, instead of saving himself, he does something absolutely incredible. He turns to the other criminal, the one who spoke up for him, and promises him paradise. Even while he's dying, his focus is still on saving someone else. He proves, right then and there, his purpose was never escape. It was always rescue.
So what do we take away from all of this? All this refusal, this constant choice to endure instead of escape? What does it teach us? Well, it pretty much forces us to completely redefine what we think of as power and what we think of as love.
First, it shows us what real love looks like. It's not about self-preservation. It's about self-sacrifice. Jesus himself said it best. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. He didn't just teach that, he lived it out in the most extreme way you could ever imagine.
And second, it completely flips our definition of strength. See, the world tells us that strength is about flexing your power, about dominating your enemies. But the cross shows us something radically different. It shows us that true strength is restraint. It's having all the power in the universe at your disposal and choosing not to use it for your own benefit.
And that brings us to this mind-bending paradox. From our human point of view, staying on that cross looked like the ultimate act of weakness. But when you really understand what was going on, you realize it was the single greatest act of strength in the history of the world. Coming down from the cross, that would have been the easy way out. That would have been the weak move.
So let's bring it all home. When you look at the cross through this new lens, through the lens of a conscious, powerful, deliberate refusal, it stops being a symbol of defeat. It becomes something else entirely.
The cross is a symbol of God choosing you over his own comfort, over his own survival. It isn't the story of a man who couldn't save himself. It's the story of a God who wouldn't, because saving you was more important.
So I'll just leave you with this one final thought to ponder. If all this is true, if he really refused to save himself so that he could save you, what do you do with that? How do you live your life in response to that kind of love? It's a question worth thinking about because the answer could absolutely change everything.